İyi günler, adım Euan Davis. Üzgün, that's my Turkish. I'm very sorry. But it really is a pleasure to be here this afternoon. My name's Euan Davis. I'm actually Scottish. So I come from a town called Perth in Scotland. Beautiful town this time of year. I recommend you go. The weather is actually like here in Istanbul. That might be a surprise, but I would really recommend it. So I run a think tank for a company called Cognizant. Does anyone know who Cognizant is? Okay, so I've got quite a lot of work to do. Okay, one person, great. So I run marketing for Cognizant, so there's a lot of work for me to do here in Turkey to explain who we are and what we do. We're pretty big. We have 270,000 employees. 270,000 employees. We're roughly $18 billion in revenue, and we grow about 10%, 11% per year. So it's a tough gig, I have to say, keeping that growth, managing that amount of people. But what I do within Cognizant is I run a think tank called the Center for the Future of Work. How work and technology are going to interplay, not just next year or the year afterwards, but in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, even 10 years, to try and help our clients and prospects and you understand how technology and work will play out. So every piece of research I do, I used to work for Gartner and Forrester, they're technology researchers. Every piece of research I do, it has to challenge you all to think a little bit differently about your own work. If you're a leader and you're thinking about how your teams will work, if you're in HR and you're thinking about how to support your stakeholders, what sort of work will people do in the future? And that is really what my team tries to answer, to try and understand how work will change. So I call this presentation, What Will You Do When Machines Do Everything? Because make no mistake, you've heard a lot about it in the last 2 days. This stuff is just about to pop. This stuff is just about to really accelerate and really change how work is done. So I'm going to have to give you a very quick history lesson here. We know the score. When you have a major shift in technology, you have a major step change in value. And this stuff, this technology, these technologies we call digital are no different at all. It's just that the S-curves, those uplifts, are getting shorter and they're getting steeper. And right now, we're right at the start of a profound shift in how your teams, your people, your organizations will work in the future. And I think this is going to be around for 80 to 100 years. And we're right at the very start of a very profound shift in how our organizations capture value. You've seen it from the introduction of textiles, from the railways, from computerization, and now digitization. That S-curve is going to create so much value and so much new work we don't even know what it is. And that's the context of what I want to talk to you today about. Because when you think about the future of work, you're either optimistic or you're actually pessimistic. So I would like to ask you a question. Are you smiling or are you nervous? Who's optimistic about the future of work in this particular room? Okay, that's roughly half. Who's pessimistic? Yeah, oh, come on, that's not half. There's a good part of the room that's checking their phones, which I get, but okay. So the way I sort of see this, I am actually optimistic, but I'm also a little bit worried. If I'm really honest, I have to think about how we're going to cope with these technologies and how our companies, our organizations are going to work. I've got 2 kids, and they tell me what they're going to do for work, and I think, well, yeah, maybe, but maybe we have to think a little bit more broadly and deeply about how governments, stakeholders, us as people, think about these new tools for work. Because some of us are over here, we're really, really excited. We look at this stuff coming through, and we think, this is just fantastic. This is incredible. If you've heard of Elon Musk, I'm sure you have heard of Elon Musk, and he's one of the greatest entrepreneurs of our age, I would argue. He's building a Hyperloop. A Hyperloop, you know, these kind of incredibly quick, sophisticated ways of transporting people. Next year, it will open in the Middle East. It will transport people from Abu Dhabi to Dubai in 10 minutes. It takes 90 minutes today. In 10 minutes, you'll be able to travel from Abu Dhabi to Dubai. It is incredible, and that is the art of the possible. Those sort of technologies are going to be affecting your industry, but some of us are on this side. We look at this and think, you know what? Some of these robots are going to take away our jobs. There's going to be layoffs. We're going to have to restructure. We're going to have to think about how we run our organizations. What does it mean, an industry of the future? Do we even know what that is? What will that mean for me, where I work? What will it mean for my business and how my business operates? Is it a capitalist dream or a labor nightmare? Well, we heard about this particular study last year. It's an Oxford University study, and I have to say I'm not going to criticize it because I think it was a very brave attempt to lay out a vision of how work will change. And it was really, really alarming. 47% of jobs were going to disappear. I mean, that's an awful, awful lot of work. And when you think about it, some jobs will disappear. There will be a reckoning for how work is done. But I actually think through this study, it got us to think at Cognizant. We actually did our own analysis on the data to try and give a more optimistic view of how work will change. Like most of you, I'm an optimist. So I think about this study and I think, is this really going to happen? Are we really going to see half the people in this room, say, from this line onwards, out of work? No, I don't think so. Where most of us are here, we worry. We think the robots are coming, they're going to take our jobs. What will we do as people? The presentation before from Expertier gave you a kind of very interesting view of, yes, they are here, but they're going to free you up to do other things. So the conversation needs to be here, because I suspect most of us are now thinking through how our own jobs can be changed, how we can make ourselves better people by getting rid of the grunt work that really kills us on a day-to-day basis. And it was a great presentation before because you could sort of see how a job could change from the intelligent use of the technology woven through it, so to speak. So if you take the Oxford University study and try to understand it, you can see that jobs are beginning to change. And I think right now, we're beginning to sort of see what a job is about. We're beginning to understand what people do so well. What is our unique value add to tasks and activities that our companies need us to do? Judgment is very easy for us as people to do. We can read people. We can take the visual cues. We understand the social context. We understand ethics. We know what the right thing to do is if we're working. The machines, on the other hand, are very good at being machines. They're very good at seeing patterns. They're very good at understanding what the next best action to do is. Based on all the evidence, this is what we should do. And right now, I think there's a bit of an exercise going on as we're beginning to look at the many tasks and activities that we're asked to source people for, and we're actually thinking through what do those people need to do when they come into the business. So here's my take. If you look at that Oxford University study, which I have to say was a good study, it was very brave, and I admire tremendously other companies like mine who take the time to really try and understand this. But jobs will go. But there's not going to be 47% of jobs. It's going to be 12% of jobs. So roughly, 12% of jobs will disappear. The vast majority of jobs are going to be enhanced. We're going to understand what do we do as people and what do machines do, and how we can bring those machines into the processes that we run to make value much more evident and much more successful in terms of the activities we need a job to do. And this is where it gets exciting, because there's going to be new jobs that we don't even know about yet. 13%, this is my calculation anyway, about 30% of new jobs in the next 10 years are going to emerge in roles, tasks, and activities we don't even know about. And that's what I'd like to talk to you a little bit more. Because 2 years ago, we wrote this book, What to Do When Machines Do Everything, because you couldn't help but understand machines are here. This whole conference has talked about machines for the last 2 days. However, people are going to be needed more than ever. So we actually published this report called 21 New Jobs of the Future. And these aren't just, 1 or 2 jobs. We think these are going to be cornerstones of employment for decades to come. So with that, I'm now going to go back into history and give you some ideas on why I think you're going to see these new jobs. Because if history holds true, if you look at how technologies have worked in the past, that whole shift into digital, that whole shift around data is nothing new, to be fair. It's just speeded up. So I'll give 100,000 lira to anyone in the room who can tell me who this is, and the British people are prevented from doing so. Does anyone know who this is? There's 100,000 lira on the table. Please. No, that's never happened to me before. So you know who this is? Yeah, you've seen the presentation before. Okay, well, forget that. Okay, so this guy is called Edwin Budding. Guess what he did? Edwin Budding invented the lawnmower, a very simple piece of equipment that changed everything. The lawnmower changed everything. Back in 1827, he was working on a farm, and he recognized he could do things differently. He invented the lawnmower, and in 1877, we had the first Wimbledon Championships. 8 years later, we had the first Ladies' Championships, and look what they had to wear. Today, that simple innovation has led to a sports industry worth $10 billion. That is the budding effect in action. Think about football. This is from where I'm from, Cambridge. It was the world's first ever football game held on Parker's Piece in Cambridge. You couldn't have had football without the invention of the lawnmower. Mr. Budding's machine came in very, very handy. The budding effect in action has led to a £350 billion industry focused on football. And it really is a lack of imagination to think that these new tools we use today, digital, isn't going to have a similar effect. The budding effect is going to be huge. Think about it. Electricity. It gave us phones. It gave us radios. It gave us the movie industry. It gave us LA. It gave us television. It gave us Netflix, all because electricity was invented. Think about the motor car. It gave us Formula One, another huge industry that creates so much value. It gave us Holiday Inn. It gave us McDonald's, the drive-through, everywhere across the UK. So I would argue that it's simply unthinkable to say that the technology we have today isn't going to create an incredible array of new jobs. 21 jobs of the future, you can go off and read them, but we've put them on this particular graph line in terms of how tech-centric they are, in terms of when they're going to come, but they are coming, and some of them are happening sooner rather than later. Do you think you need an algorithm bias auditor? Well, we've got one, and it makes sure that the content we serve up is the right content to the right person at the right time. So some of those jobs are coming through, and you could see the financial wellness coach, a very kind of interested, sophisticated, kind of mix between digital and human and Skype and delivery. That is now in place at MetLife. The man and machine teaming manager, one of my jobs, it's now in place in a factory in Cobalt. A memory curator for dementia sufferers, that is now being put on the dock at Facebook. So these once-imaginary jobs are becoming real, quicker, sooner rather than later. So my advice to you is don't get caught up in the fear. Don't stress. Yes, there is going to be a lot of disruption. There is going to be political upheaval. What do you think Brexit is about? It's about the future of work. I mean, maybe it's something else. But I have to say, it's about thinking about what we are, what we do, what's our worth, and start thinking about the future and what the future could mean, because there's an incredible creative bubble that's about to burst. So, with that, I'd like to say thank you very much. You can find my research on LinkedIn, and I give you the plug for Cognizant. So, thank you.